That was a 2-minute warning. So exactly at 4:45, we call the order on. Commissioners, it is now 1:45. I am going to entertain a motion to resume this regular public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Searle?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes, thank you, and thank you once again to all of you for your patience, and I know it is a very important matter that is in our hands. At this point in time, as I had the last call, let me call on anybody else that would be interested in providing public comment, either online or here. All you need to do is please rise, come to the podium to be sworn in.
I suppose it'll be me.
Sir, raise your right hand.
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name.
Zach Shapiro. I am the president of the Trinidad Ambulance District Board. I come from working as an EMT in Georgia, both for a rural service very similar to here and Grady Memorial Healthcare System, which is the longest running EMS service in the country, as well as the second busiest trauma center in the country as well. I can say that from personal experience, I am immensely proud of being involved with the Trinidad Ambulance District. We spend a lot of time making sure that not only the providers are our employees, but mostly our patients are covered in every single way. And this is me coming from a service that is world-class in its ability to do so. And so coming to Trinidad and being a part of this ambulance district in the way that I am has been hugely eye-opening that we are able to do these kinds of world-breaking procedures and systems that typically you only see in big cities like New York, Atlanta, LA. And so I'm not going to use my whole time here, but I would just like to say that I'm hugely a proponent of community paramedicine, because I believe that it is an amazing extension of the entire community's ability to reach out to. It's something that as a 911 response, you have a very hard time being able to do. And as community paramedicine, you have the time to be able to stand out and be there with the patient, understand them, and spend time with them. And so I can say wholeheartedly from a position on our board that every single step of this has been made with making sure that the community and our patients ultimately are provided for in every single way possible, whether that's interfacility transfers, 911, or community paramedicine.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Anyone else? I'm off the clock.
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name.
Joe Richards. I am also among the Trinidad Ambulance District Board. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I just hope you keep an open mind. We are a great community, and I just love every single one. I can't say enough good things about our hospital. I can't say enough good things about our ambulance district, because everybody works really, really hard. And just like the hospital has limitations, they can only treat someone to some extent, the ambulance district fights the same things. We had, as the county assessor attested to, a $300,000 deficit. Worked hard with staff and the board to bring those, figure out how we do more with less and not drop services. And I think we've done a pretty good job doing that. And we've met those obligations. And I can't tell you about the dedication of the ambulance district. I mean, where's Bubba? Bubba here? This guy's out during the last snowstorm in November. Commissioners were involved with that. He's out there ahead of the ambulance, taking things out to get the people, to get the ambulance to them. it's not like we're not trying, but we do have limitations and things come up. My oldest daughter had rheumatoid arthritis. She was 7. So I dealt with a chronically ill child. And trust me, there was medical people that I adored, and there's medical people I condemned. You know, it's a tough racket. But we do our best to do what we can do for the community. There are limitations. We all have good and bad experiences. Time, we have a huge county, it was 4,800 square miles to get people around. But I can tell you what, from the firefighters to the police to the sheriff to the ambulance district to the hospital, everybody is working, doing their best to do what they can do. My background, I'm an old building official, and I was up in Arapahoe County, and trust me, here's a place with 2,500 employees and a lot of money, and I got phone calls from the Broncos trainer said, "Where's the permit? You have people there, why aren't you doing permit?" You know, it's not an old argument, or it is an old argument. It's not anything new. But I can assure you that, I don't know all the numbers, I bet we only specifically turned back a half a dozen transports last year, and I know there's always we struggled with, absolutely. And the chief of I know those numbers better than I. But we're doing our best to do what we can do for the community. And I can assure you, there's not a bad group of people that work for the community during the Trinidad Ambulance District. So thank you for your time. Thank you, sir.
And this is going to be the last and final call for anyone. Sir, please come up.
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please state your name.
Thank you. My name is Robert Becker. I'm a physician and a medical director for Trinidad Ambulance District. And I wanted to come on record. I initially hadn't planned to speak on this subject, but one of the things I'd like to state as to the character of the paramedics and EMTs and all the staff at Trinidad Ambulance District, they're exceptional employees. And not only are they exceptional employees, they're heroes. Okay, I think some of the testimony or discussion regarding them may not reflect the amazing service they provide for you. I review regularly their medical treatment, every call that they provide, and almost without exception is exception in the quality they provide. They save lives in your community, and as I'm able to review those, I'm very proud of their ability to go ahead and provide. And the one cause of those transfers, I did hear some comments about transfers. I'm an ED physician as well, full time, 11 years in Pueblo. And guess what? I have to wait for transfers on a regular basis, daily basis as well. Despite multiple agencies, we're told that they can't be transported until the following day. It's extremely frustrating as a physician that they can't get the care that they need immediately. So I agree that's a very difficult problem to have. It's the worst thing to expect that medical care for your patient and not have to get that. I understand that, and I want the best for them. But just because we have problems with staffing or they have shortages of EMS in Pueblo as well as here in Trinidad, I want to also remind ourselves that that limited capacity that they have, limited availability, does remind us that we need trained personnel that have the skill and ability that our providers have to be able to practice to their highest level of scope of practice, right? So these paramedics, and one of my jobs also is working at Global Community College, which I do not represent, but as part of their paramedic program, they learn that they have these abilities to be able to care for people in our community. And in your community, there are underserved populations. There are people that have substance abuse issues. There are people that have mental health disorders. There are people that, as we heard from other testimony, need additional resources. And paramedics can work to a higher scope of practice than just what we're performing at this time. So the community paramedic program is an opportunity for your community to have extra access to care that we already have trained professionals to be able to provide. Trained professionals that in my medical community provide exceptional care. So that's how I'm going to say they defensively. I think they do a fantastic job, and I'm so proud of the medical care that they provide. And you are lucky to have them in this community because there's lots of communities that don't have the level of staffing that you have this time. And close up, thank you so much.
We apologize for the noise. We're going to see if we can get our contractors on the third floor to slow down just for that. So apologies. If you have a question as the speakers and we're unable to hear what they're saying.
Commissioners, I just wanted to make a point of clarification. I'm still under oath. Just as the assessor, I'm here to provide numbers of taxes generated and the assessed values. Just to give some clarification, because we've heard a lot of testimony about we are paying into the tax district. Yes, you are. Most of everybody in here, unless you live in Keene, Colorado, you pay into the Trinidad Ambulance tax district. Just to give you a point to focus on, a $250,000 actual value of home, which is the median home in Los Animas County, the amount of taxes that you're actually paying to the Trinidad Ambulance District is $48 in a year. So just for clarification, just so people understand that, because we have heard the taxes and we are paying into the tax. I happen to be the expert when it comes to what you're paying in property tax. When you're living, like if you live in the city limits of Trinidad, you pay almost 9 times more than that to the city of Trinidad. So, and if you ever have questions about where your tax dollars are going, please come to my office to contact my staff. But just as a point of clarification, on a $250,000 home, there's $48 in one tax year going to the Trinidad Ambulance District.
Thank you for that clarification. I believe there is no one else in the audience. I want to make sure that as far as the opportunity to provide public comment, this is the last and final call for anyone online as well as anyone here in the audience. We'll get to you, Chief, in just a second.
I've just got 2 letters of recommendation. I didn't know if you wanted.
Yeah, well, I'm going to call on you in just a moment. That is basically the public comment. So now we're going to give you an opportunity to, okay, once again, nobody else? Ma'am? So at this time, we will call on Chief Moreno once again. And as far as any evidence of letters of recommendation, we are going to be unable to receive them because they are not under oath by the proponent of the letter. You may, at this point in time, if you want to, I don't know, if you can submit them, but nonetheless, for today's purposes, they will not be considered. Chief, thank you so much. And I want to make a statement. I think all of us in this community, in this county, as an elected official, one of the things that I do anytime I get an opportunity to go to the Senate, the House, or any other testify in Washington, testify at Colorado counties, one of the things that we always do is what is best for our communities. We have such a passion in San Luis County. We have such a passion in rural Colorado. I heard a couple of things, but I'm going to ask a couple of questions here, sir. One of them was a lawsuit, which I have not had an opportunity to go over. But apparently there was a lawsuit in 2022 that mandated the ambulance district to provide services, by which, according to the testimonials that were provided, that apparently it took a court order to comply with those things. So, Chief, I'm going to ask you, where is that as far as the court order? And in fact, I know we've heard things in the community, but for the record, can you please clarify that in fact that happened and that the court order mandate was met?
Yes, so the court order was finalized in, I think, late 2023. It has been met, and the hospital appealed it and lost that appeal, and that was just recently published in the last 7 months. So the lawsuit was brought against us by the hospital because we started questioning medical necessity, which Medicare and the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services require us to do. That's why the lawsuit was brought.
And again, speaking as a non-medical expert, the question still relates to, is it Medicare or Medicaid that mandates the transfer and not a doctor? That's what I heard today earlier, that if a doctor orders a transfer, is that judgment to be questioned by the transporting agency?
So we're not questioning the doctor. We're simply doing what Medicare and Medicaid require, is to make sure that that physician certification statement is filled out correctly and that it meets their requirements, is all we're doing.
Can you give us an example of denial, like excessive wind, anything? Why would you deny that transport?
So a good, why would we deny it or why would Medicare deny it?
If you deny the transfer,
So we don't deny transfers. The only thing we do is we might postpone a transfer occasionally due to lack of resources, if we have an ambulance out of town already, or if there's bad weather. So otherwise, we just postpone them until that ambulance is available, or until it's safe to take the next transfer.
Or until you get the approval from either Medicare or Medicaid.
We don't ask for approval, we just take that patient.
Okay. The one question that I have here, sir, on the very last paragraph of your proposed service plan, the disclosure, this is a program based on the collaboration efforts of everyone involved. Trinidad Ambulance District recognizes that changes will need to be made over time. And then, of course, if you have any suggestions, improvements, please let one of the city members know. Your input is valued. As we heard these the testimonies, it is an immense responsibility that has been placed upon this board. And when we render the final decision, one of the things that we want to do is that the community members are not going to be trampled upon by the politics of two agencies. One of the things that was mentioned earlier, there has been some idiosyncrasies in communication between the ambulance district and the hospital. And hopefully those have been resolved. Communication is really what gives us the opportunity to resolve an issue or simply make the issue a little bit more complex. I think on behalf of the citizens, it would, in a perfect world, have ongoing communications. I heard my comment, and please, if I need clarification on it, I heard from various members of the local hospital. So long as the transfers and transports are there, I think the support, that's what I heard. They can support the plan. And as I read the proposed service agreement, one of the things that Madam Council as well, there were some corrections that needed to be made simply because it's a matter of semantics. The sales tax is in there, shouldn't be there, because even though the preamble to the whole thing says possibly, and this came from another website that perhaps the statute requires, but I would like to see, from my perspective, something that this is exactly what we're going to do, right? This is what we're proposing. And I just want to be certain that as we heard here today, made a couple of notes here. Let me see if I can call them back. One of the notes here that the Trinidad Ambulance District must continue to do interagency transfers and also transports for anyone and everyone. And I think, Chief, you said, yes, we will. I just want to see that in writing here, 100%. And then the other question, somebody brought up that there had been amendments to the original service plan, the one that was approved in 1989. My question is, if there has been any other amendments, I also need to have a copy because the only body that can approve those amendments is the Board of County Commissioners. And it probably happened before I got here. So I don't know if that is in file, and if it is, we have to do some homework on our end as well.
So that was Dr. Jimenez, and there have been no amended service plans What he was referring to was the fact that we started to impose safety standards and risks to our current service plan, the 1989 service plan. That's what he was alluding to.
Thank you. Council, would you, any additional comments?
No, I would just echo, there have been no amended service plans. This is the first amendment. As you stated, sir, all amendments to the service plan have to go through the board of commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioners, let me yield the floor for any additional questions at this time. And then, Chief, if you want to take this opportunity and respond to the questions that were asked, and then part of the protocol is that the questions are asked, and certainly we can put them back on the, I have written quite a few of those, but if you want to go through and respond to the audience, I think this is going to be the proper time.
Okay, I only caught one or two, and then the rest were kind of statements that I just wanted
Sure.
to address. But the first one was to answer Dr. Jimenez about are we discriminating against patients on inter-city transfers. And my answer is no. Ever since the state imposed ground ambulance licensing last year, they really started to kind of nail down abuse of interfacility transfers and focus on risk and safety of not only the patients but the providers. And so by following the court's order and imposing safety risks, we're keeping our patients and our staff safe. I don't, did you have other questions? That was the only actual question I had. Were there any questions after that? Otherwise, I can just respond to some of the other things. So, I went and I pulled the numbers, and from 2016, which is our current report writing through last year, 2024, we've done an average of 380 interfacility transfers. 3 of those years have been well over 400. That's consistent, so we haven't stopped doing interfacilities. That's something that we've always done and will continue to do. To Ms. Rossetti's point, I did forget, we did talk to Salud, and we did talk to Norrell at the Nightingale Telemed. So we did include them in our conversations.
Did you include the health department and
We did.
Kim themselves?
We did. Did you guys talk to Kim directly? Yep.
I can't confirm that it was Kim that I talked to, but I did have a meeting with the health department and met with representation from the health department. It was a year and a half ago, so I can't remember exactly who it was, so I apologize for that. But it was somebody at the health department building with the health department.
I don't know. The reason I asked, I didn't remember that conversation. I'm an advisor to the health department and attend all those board meetings, but I don't remember that.
Yeah, it wasn't the board. There was a representative. I reached out to the health department and they assigned a representative to me, and I had a conversation with them. I apologize, I can't remember who it was, but I did have a conversation with someone from the health department at the health department.
I also want to apologize to Chief Jenkins and the fire districts. So he was referring to our needs assessment, which was done by Mr. McLaughlin, and the goal wasn't to show that our fire resources are inadequate. It was to show how vastly large our county is and how long it takes to get resources there. So it wasn't a lack on their part. Mr. McLaughlin pulled some of the information off of the website, and so that's why there's a little bit of misconstrued information in there. Other ambulances have come from other communities, but that's usually the case if we're already on a transfer. So we don't want to deplete our resources. We have 2 advanced life support ambulances 24/7, and we cover the largest county in the state. So it doesn't make sense for us to send both ambulances out of town at the same time and leave the county uncovered. So if there are other ambulances coming in, it's because they were requested, because we're already on a transfer, or we have an ambulance out in the community providing service that will be
Does Dr.
Director stated, waiting hours for transfers, there's a lot that plays into that. It could be that we have an ambulance. It could be that the receiving hospital doesn't have a bed until after 5. It could be that the patient care needs additional intervention prior to us loading up. In certain cases, we have to wait for certain medications to be administered or completion of administration before we can take them, because the state allows us to do certain skills and provide care for certain medications. And so sometimes we run into those issues. It's not a consistent thing, but occasionally it happens. So the motorcycle accident at 5 Points, I was actually the third person on scene, and I was there within 4 minutes. CNAs are not able to provide care on an ambulance per state statute. You have to be an emergency medical technician basic or higher. The highest level is a paramedic with a community paramedic endorsement or a critical care paramedic endorsement. So those are the levels of care that can provide pre-hospital care. I believe Ms. Rule had left, but her statement about her daughter. We were called at 6:01 that morning. We were canceled by the hospital after being in route for 3 minutes. So I don't know where she got her information, but that was forwarded on to her daughter several years ago, and it was left there. And then the fact that we've been in 3 different buildings in the last several years. So I became the executive director in May of 2022. Our new building was already in process by our old director prior to that. So that was something that we kind of had to fulfill as we were going. It was a good move because it's a larger facility. We're able to keep all of our ambulances and resources under one house. It's not in a floodplain like our old district was. And that is a radio dead zone known to the city of Trinidad, and it's actually in their emergency operations plan. That's a radio dead zone. And so now we have line of sight to our radios. So we don't risk missing radio traffic. And then just kind of another note. So House Bill 25-1088 is to keep ambulance agencies from balance billing, and we are 100% behind that. That's a House bill that we're proposing this year.
What was that again?
House Bill 25-1088. Well, I got an answer for the square mileage too. So we cover 3,575 square miles of Trinidad Ambulance District.
What is your FTE numbers right now?
We have 12. Well, 12 field staff, and then there's 3 of us in the office.
And you cover 24 hours?
Yes, sir.
4 days on, 4 days off, how do they do that?
So we used to do 24/48s, and our staff really wanted to have the work-life balance. And so we gave them 3 different schedules to choose from, and they decided on their own that they wanted to do 48 96-hour shifts. So they're on for 48 hours. We stagger those 2 shifts, so there's always a fresh crew coming on. They're on call the 3rd day, and then they have 3 full days off.
Mr. Bukovac, how come we weren't allowed that?
I don't know.
So as a former EMT, I just want to say there's no doubt up here of you guys' integrity, Trinidad Ambulance's integrity or character. So let's not even go there.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, I had a question on your inter-facility transports. It's still going to be part of your service plan, but it's not in there?
Correct.
Was there a reason why it wasn't included in the...
So Catherine can speak to it a little bit more, but we made this service plan a more modernized, fluid service plan so that we wouldn't have to do this every time we wanted to add a service or do more for the community. So the way it's written is so that we can continue to do what we're doing, which it says in there, we'll continue to do emergency medical services. It also says, in addition to providing emergency medical services, So we're not changing that. We just made it a more fluid, modernized document.
By that statement, that includes your interfacility transports?
Correct.
Let me, thank you, Commissioners. Let me take personnel, we humans are replaceable. A new chief comes in, there is nothing in writing. The inter-facility transfers is nowhere in the literature and the language of the agreement. The court said that you must. And I think, from the perspective, I hope you appreciate where we stand. If it's not in writing, what happens if, eventually we get a new CEO of the hospital and a new director of the ambulance, and they don't have the history? And we just go on by what, they said. When it comes to me, when it comes to these type of positions, it is very imperative that it is in writing, that there is continuity of services, and that there is also succession planning for the purposes of that written agreement. Is there an opportunity to put that language into the proposed plan? Because I think that is one of the things that the hospital and all the proponents, all the comments that we receive, it's got to be in writing from my perspective, and this is my opinion, not necessarily rendering any decision at this point in time. But at the end of the day, when I left the college, I could have said, I told so-and-so to do that. And at the end of the day, well, that's not exactly what Felix said. I don't want us to get these ambiguities, and you can imagine the response when it comes to statute. We look at nothing more than the statute that guides us to take the next step. But yet, in the intent of this plan, we're a community that cares for one another. If there's something, as I'm driving down the road, I'm going to stop and I'm going to help that person. I'm going to render aid. And then I'm going to call you to come and help me. I think that's the whole thing. But I want to see this transparency and accountability, because that's who we are. We report to the taxpayers, and we operate under their guide and umbrella of ethics and responsibility. And so for that, I thank you all for the services that you provide to our community. You do fantastic. For the purposes of when I'm not longer around, they say, well, I remember there was a meeting a few years back, and I think that's what they said. Let's go back and listen to the, I want to make certain that those things, if there was ever a challenge in court, that this is the agreement that the community supported, that the community went forward with. One of the things that we did, I spent quite a few years at the college, we did an accreditation. And we held meetings with all the various groups of the community to get that accreditation. And in my opening remarks, Chief, one of the things that I said is, have you met with the community? You probably have, Mr. McLaughlin. You probably are the one that you and your team met with the community. I certainly, one of the comments was asked, well, who are them or who are they? Are there any references to that document? Transparency and accountability. All of us live in a glass house nowadays, especially when you have taken an oath, which I have, is in those glass houses, I want to put curtains, but they don't let me. Right? Because it's the light that exposes who we are as a community, and I think we're an amazing community. I was simply passing through so many years ago, and look at me, some 40 years later, I'm still here, because of the spirit of community. And that's what I want us to walk away today with. We are, Chief, do you have any, our council, do you have any closing comments as we part now into, we're going to be going into executive session. We're going to leave this session open. Now, yes?
And Mom, she carries a big stick. Guess it.
Yes. There are some comments online that we need to perhaps respond to.
Okay, Commissioners, you have you have several chats. Can you see them as he's going through them? Some of them are just, we can't hear. I don't think those are necessary, but I believe that those people have the they took that as their opportunity to speak, so I think that you should at least take a minute to read them, and then your opponent can have an opportunity to address them if you need to. But you can see it's not under oath.
So Chief, I'm going to ask you to go through those, and if you could respond to that. It appears to me that there are two issues here. CC transfers, which can be worked on with, you have, okay. I'm going to ask Mr. Dorrington, he's a lot closer than I am.
Phil, are any of the people who put in the chat, are they still on?
Yes.
You are there.
This is Nikki Shannon. I'm the one that did a lot of that, and I've also emailed it to you. I'd be happy to read it to you if that would be better.
Mrs. Shannon, before we proceed, go ahead and we're going to swear you in.
Okay.
It's only for a penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do, yes. Not really a testimony, probably just a statement. And Mr. Moreno touched on a lot of this that I've already put in there. I'm just going to read word for word what I did so I don't fumble. I'm also an EMS provider. I work with other agencies who do facility transfers as well. A lot of the comments here have been very upsetting just because we've been on the receiving end of where Trinidad Ambulance District is today. They're being publicly ridiculed for trying to add a service that will enhance the services to your community. At the time I wrote this, the $1 million that they get in tax revenue, Ms. Amato modified that to $48 per household, so that puts a whole new perspective on things. Plus, the ambulance district only gets about 50%. If they're lucky, they can get a little more reimbursement, but for what they bill, they don't collect that much. I encourage you as the commissioners to review the state IFT process that they're following. This is not a cut and dry thing. It's not just happening in Los Angeles County. Their guidelines, these physician certification statements, and I encourage you to get copies of them and see what the agency is asking. They're not questioning the doctor's capability of deciding whether somebody needs transferred. They're trying to cover the guidelines that are set forth for us. Think about as soon as you send somebody out on transfer, or like Mr. Moreno said, they send both of their ALS ambulances out, and then we get that motorcycle wreck where nobody can respond. The first ones they're going to point at is Trinidad Ambulance District because they couldn't be there. I too have an agency in Los Angeles County, and the community paramedicine and integrated health is not to replace the doctors. It's to provide an arm extension of the physicians in the hospitals who would normally seek medical advice, maybe because lack of transportation or worried about expenses. This will help focus on prevention, screening, and become a proactive instead of a reactive process for our patients. And again, Ms. Moreno said this, EMTs and paramedics have more training than a CNA. There's a lot more that we can do, so that's some misinformation that was stated. That's all I've got.
I think as far as the chats pertain, the ones that chat consider needs to be sworn in.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon. At this time, anyone that has posted a chat and would be willing to address this board, and my sincere apologies, I should have been online as well to keep track of all those chats. But nonetheless, if you're still online and would like to address your comments that you wrote on the chat, this is your opportunity. You will have to be sworn in, so I'm extending that invitation to anyone online.
Mr. Commissioner?
Yes?
This is Cindy Flower. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please raise your right hand.
It's only for
Let me see if I can get me. Can you see me now? No? There we go.
The testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name.
My name is Cindy Flowers. I right now work for CDPHE, which is the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. I work for the Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response. I'm the field manager for the South region, which includes Los Angeles, Fresno counties. I will read what I put down, but I have another comment. I asked Dr. Godot if he has a hospital, as a hospital, have they considered a critical care team, also known as a CCT, critical care team and ambulance that is hospital-based. And that way they assure the timeliness of the transports and also the qualification of the transports. EMT basics, if that is all that is available right now, if your other ambulances are paramedic based and they need a paramedic on those ambulances, an EMT basic cannot go on a critical care transport, especially if it's critical care. They're probably hanging medications that they have not been trained on. So it won't work. Obviously, they'll have to send one of their nurses that is qualified. And as a nonprofit hospital, I would think that there would be grants available for an ambulance and a CCT trained team. They already have critical care nurses, I'm sure. Let's see what else I said, sorry. I asked also, is the hospital a hospital district so that there's a mill levy for the hospital district?
The answer is no.
Okay. He had mentioned that he didn't want the community to be double taxed. So that's what made me think that, well, is it a hospital district and an ambulance district? And they pay different taxes to that. I didn't know that. Okay, so it appears to me that there are two different issues here. Number one, the critical care transfers, which can be worked on with a grant for CCT team and ambulance that's hospital-based. When I say CCT, it's critical care transfer, critical care team. And number two, the community needs for a community paramedic program provided by the Trinidad Ambulance. They are very willing and able to take care of anything that's going on in the community to determine whether they need to have further care or if they can stay home. I totally agree with, who said that, Nikki, who was just on, said that one of the things that you need to understand, that hasn't even been mentioned here, is, how did she say it, qualified to do a transfer, is preventative care. That's what CCT is all about. It's a preventative care, so that it doesn't have to be escalated, which very often it is. Let's see, what else do they say? I was a nationally registered EMT paramedic for 20 years. I worked at Parkview in the ER on the floor for 17 of those years, but I also lived in a rural area, and I was part of a volunteer ambulance before they couldn't be volunteering, where they had to be paid, but I was part of that team. I know what it's like in a rural area. I have been in there. And so I highly, highly recommend for the hospital, if at all possible, to look into a CCT, and I highly recommend for the commissioners to pass this ability for the Trinidad ambulance to go on to have a critical care, or I'm sorry, to have a community paramedicine.
Thank you, Ms. Flower. Thank you for your comments.
Yes.
Anyone else that have posted a chat online? Simply unmute yourself. Okay, Chief, any closing words from your perspective?
I don't miss when does.
Please.
Thank you very much. Again, Catherine Lynn with Constable and owner. It's sworn in. Just a couple of kind of housekeeping items. We already talked about this, but we did have actually one letter from Ms. Fowler, as well as another letter that came in. I understand you don't want them read in today because we don't have one of the individuals here. But 32.1.201 subsection 4 does allow the applicant to present evidence, and so we would like to submit these as evidence in support of the program and the service plan amendment. So I'll just leave that with you. You obviously can chat that over with your counsel at the appropriate time. We can do that. Just to kind of wrap up, again, sorry for the boring legal stuff. But as you mentioned, Commissioner, this is driven heavily by statute, so we want to make sure that we kind of wrap it around to those statutory requirements. Again, there's no change in the existing service. There's no change in the mill levy. The change here is in the addition of this community paramedic program, and under state law, under Title 32, and under the CDPHE requirements, that has to be provided by a health service district. It's not a service that an ambulance district can provide. So the service plan amendment allows the existing district the flexibility to provide this additional service. The service plan is intentionally written in a broad perspective so that every time there is a adjustment in any sort of scheduling change for paramedics or adjustment in level of services, whether increase or decrease based on the decision of the board of the ambulance district, that's not something that we have to come back every time to Board of County Commissioners. Frankly, you don't want to do this every time that they adjust their services, and we don't want to do it every time. The 1989 service plan, I don't want to use the word archaic, but I will. In terms of special districts, it is archaic. You know, the Title 32 special district law came into play in 1978. And after that, we saw a flurry of special districts formed from prior volunteer organizations. I don't know if that is TAD's history or not, but 1989 tells me it probably was something along those lines. Service plans that we saw in the late 70s, 80s, early 90s, they tended to be these kitchen sink service plans where it's like, we're going to build this building, we're going to have X number of ambulances, and frankly, they don't work for the modern age because our legislature, in their utmost wisdom, and I'm not being sarcastic, but actually really good about updating Title 32, is as they see a need that a governmental entity, particularly a Title 32 district, can provide, they amend Title 32 and they add services and they adjust services that your districts can provide. And so we don't want to come back every time that the legislature makes a change that we can then incorporate. So that is why the service plan is written the way it is. It's intended to be flexible. It's intended to carry forward the existing services without being unduly restrictive and allow the district to grow and adopt changes as the community sees those needs. Because there is a community organization. So I just wanted to address those couple of things. Again, I do believe that we've met the the need, we've met the compliance with the requirements, the procedural requirements, the statutory requirements, not only by providing the license that the CDPHE has already issued. Sorry, CDPHE is Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. But we've seen here today that there are community members who see a need for these additional services. There are individuals that spoke that said they would benefit personally from these services. We have a community assessment team that identifies that there is a need for these services and that they can complement the services that the district, the hospital, and other providers are already providing. I know this is not for the hearing today, but the district's name would change and we will go through that court process upon approval of a service plan to a health service district. It just cannot remain Trinidad Ambulance District under state law. But otherwise it really is an organizational change and we would request that you approve the service plan amendment. Thank you.
My closing comments to you, Council. Notwithstanding what the court order submitted some time back, that it obligates the Trinidad Ambulance District to continue to do this 24-hour coverage of interagency transfers and transports. I think that is what I walk away with. That became kind of the center of, and what I heard from our hospital representatives is this has to be a collaboration. In a community like ours, it wouldn't work any other way. But it must address, to me, and I'm not implying that the court order is going to be fly over. What I'm saying here is, if that's what the court said, having not read that particular document, simply taking the comments from the audience, I think, for purposes of, and you continue to say, we left it vague, and yes, quite honestly, this is not something that we would want to have anyone, any special district in front of us at any time, 3-4 times a year. I totally understand that. But there were some mandates from the court order that I believe have to continue on even to the formation of the new district. And again, I'm making that's my opinion, but I'm looking for back.
May I address that? And I apologize, you asked that earlier, and there's been so many questions.
Sure.
It's hard to address, but I appreciate your interest in that. I will say I was not involved in the district and was not litigation counsel. I have read the court order, and it is actually a bit more nuanced than that. So the court order says that the district has to provide interfacility transfers because it's written in the service plan, but only so far as it is practicable. And so that's what the district has been doing since then, and that's what Chief talked about, the limitations that they have had with weather, with staffing, and I'm sorry, he said some other ones. Yeah, so the court recognized that it is not practicable and therefore not a violation of the 1989 service plan for the district. Not, it's too many nots, but when the district doesn't respond to every interfacility transfer, they're still meeting their service plan requirements, so long as those transfers are not practicable. So it may not be practicable for the district to respond within 30 minutes because of staffing or because of whatnot. So the district is complying. The court order actually in its very last sentence says, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't find it in my notes right now, but this is not a restriction on the Trinidad Ambulance District modifying its service plan through the Board of County Commissioners. So this service plan modification, we believe, complies with the court order. The court did not say this can never be changed, it's written in stone forever. It said you can change it, obviously through an amended service plan. And again, this is just service plan is intended to be more flexible and more modern and more workable for the community. I hope that answers your question.
Yes,
if not,
I simply, and as we go on to render a decision, may not be today. We do have also the statute. The statute provides an opportunity. We have, give me 1 second, the statute provides us, again, a little bit of a window time for us to consult with counsel. But I want to make sure that the community understands exactly that is the court order, as you mentioned, and I haven't read it, and I'm going to get a copy of it on the very last paragraph, that it could be amended at any time, which is what is happening right now. Does that rescind the court order by having a new district?
We don't have a new district, so I just want to clarify that. It's the same existing district, name change and added service. So there's no rescission of the court order. The court order will stand. It simply wouldn't apply to the new service plan. That court order applies to the facts that existed at the time of that lawsuit.
So the terms and conditions of 1989 will continue to be part of the new proposed service plan.
This would continue providing the services, but the service plan you have before you today would be the new service plan.
Did anywhere in the court's decision, did they mention the paragraph where, going back to 1989, where the district was formed? Because to me, that's the foundation of this whole conversation.
I'm not sure I understand.
So, in the court decision, do they make reference to the Trinidad Ambulance District is formed to do the following?
I would suggest that you read it and perhaps consult with counsel with it, but my reading of it is they were dealing with the service plan as presented to them.
Commissioners, any other questions? We have one in the audience.
May I approach?
You know what?
I don't want to testify. I want to provide supporting documents that I referenced in my testimony today.
You can forward those documents, Ms. Garrett. Absolutely.
Can we get a copy of those as well?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Very careful email, but yeah.
Ms. Jimenez, are you saying hello?
Yes. No, can I just make a comment, not about that?
You know what, at this point in time, pretty much because we have concluded the common perspective, I want us to maintain the integrity of this public hearing.
Okay.
So my sincere apologies. At this point in time, anybody else? Chief.
Thank you. First and foremost, I'm the Deputy Chief of Trade. I will be happy to read it when I'm ready.
Yes.
All day long, I do solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And you can state your name one more time, sorry.
David the Truth. Commissioners, Trinidad Ambulance District has got kicked in the guts today. As a 17-year veteran of Trinidad Ambulance, days, nights, transfers, in-facility transfers with a lot of people in this room, doing exactly what you guys are asking us to do and be part of this public and take care of our people. Let me assure you, I'm the one at the end of the phone doing the chain of command, and that chief gets to sleep at night, and I'm number 2, so I get to answer the phone when my crews call and ask, have problems with transfers. And let me assure you, the reasons that we don't take transfers are just what was said. And just what was said by the court is bona fide safety concerns or lack of personnel. Now let me ask you from the hospital perspective, if you don't have personnel, can you provide a service? Can you provide a service? Commissioner, if you don't have personnel, can you provide a service? Okay. So, nor can we. So, what I will assure you is, we look at our jobs very hard. The majority of the Trinidad ambulance are more. We care about this community. I am appalled and absolutely sickened by some of the questions, some of the comments, and to be at the end of the phone and to make those decisions of what's safe and where do I draw that line? Patient safety, public safety, and my crew's safety. I will tell you, it will be my patient, my crew, and the public every time.
Thank you, sir. We are not going to close this meeting. We are simply now at this time. We're going to go into executive session. This board will meet in executive session under CRS 24642-4B, conferring with the county attorney for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. Item A, the service plan for the Trinidad Ambulance District. Commissioners, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session. So moved. Second motion. Commissioner Anderson? Yes. Commissioner Searle? Yes.